Hello, my name is Intern Pastor Sharon Kane. I thank you for allowing me this time to speak to you today on the social justice issue of truth and reconciliation between Canadians and Indigenous peoples. In the spirit of respect and reconciliation, I acknowledge that I live and work on Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada has been in existence for 13 years. Between 2007 and 2015, the Government of Canada provided financial support to the TRC to complete their work. The TRC listened to over 6,500 witnesses over these 6 years. The TRC held 7 national events across Canada to teach Canadians about the history surrounding the residential schools. In June of 2015, the TRC held its closing event in Ottawa, which included 94 calls to action or recommendations to improve relations among the people. One may read the reports of the terrible history of Indian residential schools at the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. It is my opinion that the TRC has created the greatest stir among our people in Canada on this topic in my lifetime. One of the greatest things I see being done is in education. When I entered the seminary in 2016, I soon realized without any post-secondary education, I would not succeed in the classes at seminary. Our professor at the seminary recommended I take some classes at the university. One of the classes she suggested was an Indigenous Studies class. I enrolled into this class. The professor was a white male who was married to an Indigenous woman. He was very passionate about leading this class. He expressed his anger and disappointment largely towards the Government of Canada for their failure to respect the treaties and the part they played in the residential schools. The books we had to read for the class were informative and educational. I also learned about Idle No More, which was about safeguarding the environment and respect for Indigenous sovereignty. I learned about treaties that were made and then broken. Sadly, the government and the white settlers often did not keep the agreements they made with the Indigenous people. I heard about the residential schools and how they came to be. The Indigenous people had no power against the white government. When I entered the seminary for the second time in 2018, one of the required classes was an Indigenous Studies class. The instructor was an Indigenous woman who had a diverse class of in-class instruction, field trips, and visits from various elders who had gone to residential schools. I learned so much about the Indigenous people from these 2 classes. Education in all our schools is so important, and not only in post-secondary, but also in the public schools. As I look at the horrible past of the Indigenous people, I see God who weeps alongside those families who were torn apart, those who were abused physically, mentally, and emotionally, cultures and traditions that were taken away from innocent people. One of the most important commandments that God gives us is to love our neighbor. Is taking away children from their families loving our neighbor? Is cutting off the hair of a child against their will loving our neighbor? Is telling a child that speaking in their native tongue is blasphemy loving our neighbor? Is sexually abusing an innocent, helpless child loving our neighbor? Most certainly, these are not examples of loving our neighbor. I myself am ashamed to admit the views of my family while growing up. We did not know any Indigenous people, nor were there any Indigenous people in our community, but we somehow felt we could judge them. How can you judge someone when you do not know them? Why did we feel the need to put other people down? Was it fear? Was it ignorance? Was it low self-esteem? Were we trying to impress others? Was there a need to feel power over others? I think a part of it was ignorance. I think another part was to put the blame on them for the financial strain put on governments for those who were not working. My family believed that most Indigenous people lived on social assistance. Was it racism? Most definitely. As I grew up and worked with the public, I encountered more and more Indigenous people throughout my life. Many were poor, but they were kind, harmless people. To me, it seemed that many of the Indigenous people I met felt they were unvalued and suffered from low self-esteem. Reconciliation is not a one-way event. One-way events are what happened in the past, and look what a mess it created. The white settlers, the government leaders, and the churches led by way of a one-way road. Their road had only one direction. It was their way, and that was it. The Indigenous people were forced down this one-way road to a dead end, literally for some. They could not even turn around, but were forced up that one-way road, a road which led to hell. Today I see that one-way road beginning to change. I see it opening into a two-way road. Thankfully, there are no more residential schools in operation. They have all been shut down. The Indigenous people are no longer forced to go down that ugly one-way road to hell. But now comes the work of recognizing the ugliness of the past, the truth of it all, so we may begin to move forward. I see our Indigenous brothers and sisters wanting to move forward. This is so awesome. It's unfortunate that those who were hurt must make the first move, but I am glad that we are moving towards a new and healthier relationship. Today, like many others, I am wearing an orange shirt for Orange Shirt Day in remembrance of those who went to residential schools. I was curious to know why orange is the color of the shirts we wear. I found the reason why. Phyllis Webstad, as a young girl, was given a nice new shiny orange shirt by her grandmother for her first day of school. When she got to school, they took it away. Today we wear orange shirts to honor and respect what happened to Phyllis Webstad and others like her. I was a little leery when wearing this shirt at first. Can I live up to my part of the Truth and Reconciliation Agreement? Am I just wearing this shirt for show? Or do I really want to show my support for the truth of what happened in the past? I feel this is a question each one of us must ask ourselves when wearing an orange shirt or showing up at a rally to support our Indigenous brothers and sisters. We have come this far now. Let us continue to move forward in love and respect for all God's children by loving our neighbors, in our communities, and in our world. Thank you.